Hey, this is DB LeBron, and this is the Ellis Talker Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I have a very special guest, Mr. Walter Darrach, joining me from the airport. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I really appreciate you coming on the show and answering questions for the people of Midlothian. There's a lot going on in Midlothian, and you've been there in the mix. Can you tell people about yourself because there's been a lot of people that moved here?
Sure. So first and foremost, my name is Walter Darrach. I am your current Midlothian City Councilman in Place Two. And if you're unfamiliar, City of Midlothian is at large. So whether or not Place Two, Place Three, Place Four, we represent the city as a whole. So I've been in Midlothian for 10 years now, married 14 years. I have six children, four girls, two boys, and I run a private jet maintenance and management company out of Dallas here.
Wow. You said six kids?
Six kids, yes.
Be fruitful and multiply.
Amen.
Definitely, definitely.
That's
So,
right.
you're running again for reelection.
Yes.
You do have a challenger this time, and I had him on. I believe I had him on. So, or I'm gonna have him on. Uh, why are you running for reelection?
Well, so that's pretty simple, right? I love Midlothian, and I think we have work to do. It's so funny because all the great things about Midlothian is what gets people to move here. Whether you came here yesterday or 40 years ago, there's something that drew you to this town. And I know that's how we got here, but we're growing, right? So, and everyone said that for the last 10, 12, 14 years, specifically in the last 10 years, we've grown so much and we've grown so fast. So, why stay? Why get involved? Why do any of it? And for me, it's real simple. I love where I live. I think a lot of people love where they live. Again, like whether you've been here a day or 20, 30 years, we've got work to do. So, first term, really just kind of got my feet wet, so to speak, learned the processes and got really up to speed on how we got to where we are as a city. And then now I feel experienced, I feel knowledgeable, I feel square and planted in our comprehensive plan and our thoroughfare plan, our land use plan, our codes and ordinances, and how they've applied to different parts of our city and different developments over time. And really, I want to see proper application of those things as we kind of just transition into a new mayor and into what will really be the closeout of the residential development of our community. That's coming in the next few years. There's not a lot of land left. You may see it, wide open and green, but chances are it's already been slated for development. So really working those integrations of residential development into how are we going to support those households with commercial developments, community retail, different eating and food establishments, shopping, and how to get all those things to mesh well and mesh together.
That's a lot there, and I plan on covering growth. There's a lot going on, and I actually put it in the title of this one because there's so much going on in the city of Midlothian right now, and there is change. Mayor Reno is stepping down. Thank you so much for your service, Mayor Reno. Appreciate it. And you're gonna have a new mayor. You're gonna have some turnover, um, different ideas, and there's different problems that are facing the city. So we'll go into growth.
Sure.
We got a bunch of houses going in Walnut Grove. We
Without
have
a doubt.
we have 663 is going to be, it's just blowing up, and there's still what's left is slated. If you looked at P&Z, folks, you'll see there's a lot of stuff going on with this growth. You've been there, and
Mhm.
you've seen the way that this thing grow. Is there anything that you would like to see as far as the growth is that you would like to see done different? That if it was Walter Darrach's call,
Mhm.
what would it be?
So it's real simple. I'm a process guy. I believe that as a city councilman, we're a board of directors over city staff, right? So we hire the city manager and city secretary, and we lay out to specifically our city manager our goals and objectives as we understand it by the people who elected us, right? Their concerns go direct all the way to the top. And really, we should be instilling that vision into our city manager so he can apply the process, right? So for me, I'm a process guy. If we don't like the outcome of some of the things that have come across the dais, so to speak, or we don't like how the process has played out in one development or another, we're the people that change that, right? There's no one going to do it for us. We need to be the ones to identify the situations where what we intended to happen and what did happen maybe didn't line up, and then identify the delta between the two and then rectify the problem, right? We study what allowed what did happen versus what we thought would happen when we set such codes and ordinances, or such things like PDs or variances or zoning changes, etc. And then determine, did the process achieve the goal? And if not, then we need to be prepared as leaders of this city to attack that. We should be changing those processes and then providing that directive to our staff. So for me, that's where I'm at.
What there isn't being done? What in that you just gave me would you like to see done going forward, like
Sure.
really, or that we've missed?
So I can tell you that change is hard and sometimes often seen as controversial. So I think we're really good at identifying some of our weaknesses. But as we study our weaknesses, and you go around and around the room, and everybody says, I wish we could do this better. I wish we were stronger in this area. If you study your weaknesses long enough, it becomes your strengths through your uniqueness. Okay. So what we're doing is failing to close some of these loopholes, failing to identify the processes. Like, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. It's one thing that I got done. I asked that it be done. Council supported it, and then as a council body, we voted on it. But we used to talk about driveway access for a single residential lot onto a certain class of roadway or higher. So let's just say, for example, you're on Skinner Road and you bought a 2-acre tract and you can put one house on it, and you always intended to build your house there. In order for you to put your driveway on the one, lot that you bought, it would have to go through the city planning, and then through P&Z, and then through council for approval. And it's crazy to me. I remember asking this question: why is this coming to the city council level? If we have codes and ordinances to the spacing, to the access, to the width, to the approach, to the materials, etc., as long as those things are met, this is really administrative. This should happen through the process that we set forth. So really what was identified, the answer to that was, well, our processes say that it's going to come to council and it's going to go to P&Z. So we changed that. As long as all the classifications and requirements are met for a single lot driveway access, as long as those are met at the planning and permitting stages, it no longer comes to council. The process works it out. Then that's probably the quickest and easiest example I can tell you of the sort of things that I look to as successes, right?
Right.
Because without process, and without process that works, procedure that works, and plans that work and that are applied, really every decision could potentially be coming to council with a fresh slate. So irregardless of what we did before, irregardless of what our thoroughfare plan says, or our comprehensive plan, or our downtown master plan, parks plan, if we're not utilizing those things, then we shouldn't have built them, right? So we should be putting those things into play with every decision. And then if we're not able to get the outcome of what we had hoped for our city, utilizing those plans and those codes and ordinances, they need to be changed.
So follow the process, definitely.
Yeah.
So people are concerned, and a lot of stuff has already been planned or done. So I wanted to ask you, people are concerned with density. Apartments coming up right next to them. Density, when you look at housing and urban development on a federal level, they are pushing density. They want
Hmm.
density in order to provide more low income housing, etc. But how is that affecting the city? And what are your thoughts personally on density? And what would you like to see?
So it's so funny, right? I've heard lots of things specifically just in this campaign cycle, right? The number one thing, well, there's two things people say. Midlothian's expensive, and I don't have a house for my kid to move into, right? So there's not an affordable house, and Midlothian's expensive. So really, as a community, we have to decide where we want our city to go, right? So I totally get it. I couldn't buy my first house in Midlothian, and that's why I bought in Mansfield to begin with. But the argument for density, right? Density makes profits for developers. It increases tax income for the city. But I believe that the impact of rooftops to the city pretty much outweighs the taxable benefits if you just go rooftop for rooftop, right? So that's where things like sales tax come in, um, corporate partnerships, which would be what I like to call community partners, right? Those are the big employers, things like Gerdau, Walmart, Target, things like that, right? Synopta, Sunrider, those companies right there provide jobs. They provide hundreds of millions of dollars in taxable value to our city. And those things are typically lower impact than your standard subdivision.
So one of the things, and thank you so much for that answer. One of the things about Midlothian that you'll notice when you're driving through is, it's a lot about houses. There's a
Sure.
lot of rooftops and rooftops and rooftops, but there wasn't a lot of business, and that's changing.
Mhm.
You got Kroger and you got stuff being built, but it was a sort of a bedroom community, and all the business was in Waxahachie or Mansfield.
Sure.
So, what do you envision, as far since we're on the growth question? What do you envision Midlothian looking like in the future? Do you want it to be a place where you could live, where you can work, where you can play, where you can do it all in Midlothian, or would you kind of like to keep it a more, bedroom type community?
So it's funny, right? When you get elected to city council, you have to take in the desire of your city as a whole, right? So when I moved to Midlothian, I liked that it was a bedroom community. I didn't mind having to go to Mansfield or Waxahachie because it kind of kept our town quiet and kind of quaint, right? Rural, so to speak. But by and large, people do enjoy the convenience of having, even just if it's the basic necessities, down the end of the street, right? So that does, by its very nature, change the identity of our community from a bedroom community to a mixed community. You'll hear a lot of people saying, they want to watch a movie in Midlothian. Well, in order to watch a movie in Midlothian, we're going to need a movie theater, right? There's the big push for the rec center. We need something for our children to do. And then there was the swim. Our swim team needs a pool, and there's people who want a steakhouse and less chicken restaurants. So really, just the general holistic nature of our town's growth will bring these things in. But I can tell you, for me, what brought me to Midlothian was I felt like I could be standing in my front yard and forget that Dallas Fort Worth even existed. So really, what that means is, as we enter this next stage, which for me is commercial development and integration of land uses, we really need to be cognizant of the impact of, how one business will affect the neighborhoods around it, or how one business will affect an existing business. And do our roads currently have the capacity to handle, the increase in traffic, or will it be something that we really want to avoid, right? So,
Right.
you talk about like Fredericksburg or something like that. Everyone kind of sees that as, this quaint hill country town. Yeah, but if you live in Fredericksburg and you try and get to the downtown area, especially during their tourism season, you avoid that like the plague. So to me, that doesn't sound like a place I want to live. Maybe a place I want to visit, but maybe not a place I want to live, right?
Right.
And then you asked me about how I see development across town. Um, I'm a Brookshire's guy. I really like the service at Brookshire's. I like that they, wheel the groceries out to the car. I'm just kind of that old fashioned way,
Okay.
My wife, on the other hand, she likes Kroger. She knows if she asks me to go to the grocery store, she knows I'm going to Brookshire's. So if
Right.
it's not at Brookshire's, I can't bring it home. But that being said, 663 is a major retail corridor for our city. It's brought a lot of, specifically that Kroger development's brought a lot of tax dollars into our city. It's brought a lot of food offerings and hair styling places, nail salons, another grocery store, pet store, all
There's a
sorts
lot.
of things.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like that. We love what is available within the parking lot confines of that Kroger, but maybe the backup of 663 traffic onto 287 during peak hours, we don't love that so much. How long it takes to get out of
I experienced
entryway
that today.
points on 663, we don't love that so much. So
Right.
really, where that focus is jump starting the development of 663, which is done through a manner of communication with TxDOT, communication with our state and federal reps, right? Constant communication, because the loudest wheel gets the grease, right?
Mhm.
And then also being open to using city dollars to improve the road, because I will tell you, TxDOT will let us improve that road. We can take that over from TxDOT. But
Oh,
then it's our responsibility for the run that we take. It's not like we can take it for a little bit and then give it back. Once
yeah.
we take it, it's ours.
It's
So
yours.
it's understanding that cost and then that cost value impact, right?
Yeah.
So after the 663, and I'll wrap it up. I apologize.
No, that's
I
fine.
didn't mean to keep going, but after the 663 development, which is pretty well closing out, right? For me, I think just naturally you're going to see significant development. Well, actually, not naturally. I know it's coming, and it's been at some city council and P&Z cases. Walnut Grove 287, right? That is the next improved highway intersection along 287 in our town. So it is expected and obvious that development will come there. It's a grade separated intersection, right? And then going further south from that would be the last economy asset, what I would call an economy asset of the city of Midlothian, is our Midway Regional Airport. You're
Right.
going to see development out there over the next several years that's going to turn that into another economy asset for our community.
So with this commercial growth, because you mentioned it, and more commercial, I mean, there's going to be more stores coming. Is Midlothian doing the work to make sure that we're attractive for these companies to come, these corporations, stores, etc.?
So I think not as good as we could be. So a little bit of a misconception. Our Midlothian Economic Development Corporation, our Type A corporation, they do not target what we would call community retail, right? They're not going to target restaurants. They're not going to target um, boutique stores or small retail locations. They're in the business of primary job creation. So manufacturing, logistics, environmental, different things. We're talking, like medical, Methodist hospital, things like that. The Google data center. All these things came from the efforts or through the efforts of a combination between the Midlothian Economic Development Corporation and the city of Midlothian working together, and then incentivizing our city to the maximum that we could to tell these, what I consider, again, community partners, that we would be the community to partner with, right? Because they bring with them hundreds of millions of dollars and 20, 30, 40, 50 years of partnership. So they want to know that we're going to have that. Now, on the smaller business side, that goes back to what I talked about, the improvement in the processes, right? So if you take, for example, everyone's favorite neighborhood developer, Stephen Heidelbaugh, right? He's bringing us Founders Row, and he's turned over a lot of the buildings downtown. And help to renovate those things. He truly does wish to bring high quality and high class developments to Midlothian. But I've been involved through council and P&Z before that for years now, hearing about, hey, I submitted these things. These are the comments that I got back. You wanted me to do A, B, C, and D. I did that. I've submitted it back, expecting now to get my approval to move to the next step. And now oh no, we're changing this. And then I went and I changed it and I came back and, oh no, now we got to change this. So that's really not a super friendly development environment for even our own hometown businessman, right? Because he lives here in town and he's made his focus improving the retail, commercial, and food offering spaces in town.
Yeah. And so, we definitely could do some things, and with the businesses coming, that it does expand the tax base. So I want to go into taxes because
Sure.
there's a lot of, and I've said this, there's a lot of structural issues going on with the taxes in Texas, stuff going on in Austin, etc. So I saw the tax debate this year. I watched what you guys, were debating, the tax rate, and there was no new revenue discussed. There were like four different choices. And I saw you guys go back and forth about it. So I wanted to find out where you stood. What was your train of thought during that debate? What would you like to see on property taxes? And real quickly, Waxahachie did a homestead kind of exemption on their own within the city. Is that
Sure.
something you would support or even push?
So I'll start with that one because that's an easy one. That's actually some conversations after the budget cycle this year. Some of us councilmen were kind of looking at that and what Waxahachie did, and I don't see why that's not something that we couldn't do here, right? Because again, I go back to some of our highest taxpayers or tax paying categories do not come from rooftops. Now it used to, but we're turning that tide. So certainly a homestead exemption from the city would be something beneficial. I would support it. I can just tell you our valuations are through the roof, and that would be something that if you had to fight for it, and with someone who would not support that, the argument could be simply made. That's an exemption that we could evaluate on a year to year or 2 or 3 year period, and then renew over and over and over again. Because obviously, if the economy goes into free fall, we don't want our city to go with it, right? So we don't want to be chopping ourselves off at the knees. So that's the homestead exemption. Now, as far as the budget process goes, I can tell you that this is a heated debate this
I
year.
watched. I watched.
It was significantly different than last year. We went really fast last year, and then this year, there's just so much on the books that we're trying to get done as a city, right? So the city hall, the safety center, the rec center, and
A
then the
pool.
roads.
Yeah, the
It's
roads. Yeah.
tons of projects, right? And so some of the things that I focused on during this budget, right? So the way it was, or the way it played out in my head, and I think it's important that we talk about this because I've heard from some people, hey Walter, you're kind of aggressive, or you push too hard, or you can't run a city budget like a business budget.
It's
And
a big boy sport.
it's a big boy sport.
Yeah.
I kind of believe, now we can be respectful and we can disagree, but we should not back down from the principle, right? We can carry our principle high while still communicating as a team. So that being said, a couple of weeks prior to the first workshop for the budget, we had a workshop at the Midlothian Community Center for the city hall and the public safety building. And what came out of that workshop was, we have $25 million in the budget for city hall. Currently, we're up to 32 million. We have a delta of $7 million. And at that time, the safety center was on budget. So really the discussion was, from a council perspective, are we okay with the overage? And If so, where do we want to start getting the money? Well, first and foremost, I wasn't okay with the overage. I do feel as though, we need to build the city hall that would be proud, or would make the residents proud for the next 50 years, right? That's the name of the game for that building. But I also say that if we needed $32 million, that should have been the number on the budget, or not on the budget, on the bond election. That should have been the number. So for me, I had a hard time with that. But coming out of that workshop, the majority vote was to proceed with the overage and source the additional money. So for me, I was the only person that was against it at the time. And again, not because I didn't want a city hall that was the crown jewel of Midlothian for 50 years to come. It's because I wanted to know the money a little bit better. So moving forward, we came out of that. Hey, we have sources to get the money. So I'm like, okay, great. Couple weeks later, we get into the budget, and $46 million was the budget that was proposed, and it was the leanest, meanest, trimmest, and greenest budget that Midlothians ever put forward. Is really, what was said to us. And oh, but by the way, we have a $2 million deficit. So okay, well, that's a problem, because that's the first year that we've been presented a budget with a deficit. So initially, or immediately, I said, okay, well, I guess we're pulling $2 million off the city hall, because if we can pull seven, because we're already seven over, then somebody needs to scale it back just a little bit. Because in my house, if I have X amount of money and my expenses are Y, and I've tapped out every source I can, savings and retirement or credit cards or whatever I can think of to get any kind of money, and I still don't have money, the option in my house is to scale back. So, that's really where I was. And through the tax rate debate, I kept saying, I will vote for the tax rate that it takes to effectively run the city, right? So, they had the no new revenue rate, and then they had the hold steady rate, and then they had the compromise rate in between. And you'll notice that I made a motion, I believe, for the no new revenue rate. And I did that because I was trying to make a point that if we can run at the no new revenue rate, we should do that. If we have to run at the compromise rate, we should do that. If we had to run at the hold steady rate, we should do that. But I was having a hard time getting together that information. I can't have a $2 million budget deficit over here and be 90 staff members down from the next comparable city, and be told that the only way to save money is to cut staff or cut roads. I brought that up multiple times over the course of the budget. Listen, I'm taking the whole road conversation off the table. Okay. I'm taking it off the table. Roads is ugly. It's dirty. Sewer, water, utilities. Look, it's not pretty. It's never going to be as pretty as City Hall. It's never, but if our roads are bad, if our intersections don't make sense, if we don't have proper signaling, proper ingress, egress to different parts of our city, no one's going to want to go. No one's going to want to go across town. So even though we have all these great offerings in our community, where are they going to go? They're going to hop on 287 and get the heck out of Dodge.
Right. And like Fredericksburg, like you were talking about. So do you think, and I need a short one because I got to wrap, I got to talk about MUDs and then wrap you.
Sure.
So do you think that the city is being a good steward of the people's money?
So that's a very double-edged question. I will tell you this. In short, the answer is our financial policies to date have provided for a wealth of funding to be ready to use.
Okay.
We have an exorbitant amount of money going into this budget cycle. We had an exorbitant amount of money in our funds, whether it be our general fund, our utility fund, our MDA fund, our impact fee fund, whatever it was, we had top dollar. Okay.
Mhm.
But where, your question was, are we being good stewards? So I wholeheartedly believe to be a good steward, you have to be effective with the money you have on hand, not just sit on it. So if we have it, we have to do one of two things. Number one, we have to utilize it for the betterment of our community and its residents, or number two, we need to give it back. So were we good stewards? Probably not as good as we could have been, because we were letting a large amount of money stack up.
Okay. Okay. And that's fair. That's fair assessment. So unfortunately, I'm running out of time, but I want to go over for this issue.
Sure.
Muds have
Yes.
been brought up. Muds are all over the Facebook world right now. So can you kind of briefly explain muds and where you stand on them?
So, okay, where do I stand on them? Obviously, as a citizen of Midlothian, I'm not in favor of large scale development like the muds on the outskirts of our town. Now, some of it is in the city limits, but the majority of it is in our ETJ in Waxahachie. I'm not in favor of that. Now, not because I don't want to see, another 8,000 beautiful families in our county. But really what it is, we're talking about infrastructure. Okay. We're talking about a strain on infrastructure, a strain on services, a strain on our capability to properly educate and scale to the size and timeline that this development may be coming. So really what it can do is cause a significant dip in the quality of life, and really increase the cost on the city to get roadway impacts improved, to get things widened, to get more fire trucks, more police cars, more firemen and policemen, and then of course there's the ISD side of things, having to put in more schools and hire more educators. I mean, when you grow, you want to grow holistically. You want to grow in a steady and safe manner. Because obviously, if you're not growing, you're dying. So you do want a percentage of growth, but if you hyper grow, you have to flex incredibly. And when that's all said and done, that comes at a very, very heavy cost.
And that definitely does. So I am always grateful when you guys come on the show, because I know you don't have to choose me, and I know you don't have to come on here. So getting asked questions is not always the most comfortable thing, but I try to make it as comfortable as possible.
I appreciate it. It's
I
getting easier. I'm gonna say it's a little different when you're sitting at city council, because you're kind of going through the routine over and over. But when you sit for these interviews, like, you didn't give me any information. I don't know what you're gonna ask me. I just went with it. To be honest, I didn't watch the previous ones. I wanted to come fresh for this interview, so I wasn't sure what we were gonna cover. And I've been to some interviews where they ask you, they say, do you have any topics that are off limits? And my answer to them is the same I would say to you if you asked. The answer is no. I'm a public servant. I'm here to serve. I'm here to work for the city of Midlothian and its residents. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. It's been a learning curve, but it's been amazing. I will tell you, being a city councilman is hard work, and I applaud anyone that takes the seat. I'm looking to do it for another term in place too for the city council, city of Midlothian, and I'm excited for election day.
well, I think you did your close on, unless you'd like to do an official one to the people of Midlothian.
No, that's kind of it. Again, my name's Walter Darrach. I'm trying to get reelected to the city council for City of Midlothian, place 2. It has been my pleasure to be your city councilman. It's been a learning experience, and I'm really ready to continue working for the city and its residents, apply improved processes and procedures to ensure that as things like the mud, and as things like commercial development, and as things like the final stages of our residential development come to town, that we are being as effective and efficient in our processes so we get the highest quality outcomes.
Mr. Darrach, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you again. And I have more shows coming. I'm going to be covering the bond for MISD, for WISD, because there's a lot going on there, and you might want to watch, because there's some information, definitely some information coming. Again, thank you so much for watching, and take care. Thank you, Mr. Darrach. Can you stick around real quick?
Yes, sir, I will. Thank you very much.